authenticity, Teens on Chicago Arts Landscape. We are so thrilled to have so many of you attending from here in Chicago, both coasts, and even some international attendees. I'm going to kick us off today, but as soon as I can get through my script here, I will turn it over to the young people that you are here to hear from. We've got an incredible slate of teen leaders from Chicago's arts sector who will reflect on the lives and needs of young people as we imagine the other side of one of the most challenging periods in recent history. This is an opportunity as adults in the field to ensure that we are following the lead of youth and centering the authentic perspectives of young people. Today's event is hosted by the team at Urban Gateways and the Teen Arts Pass program and supported by Chicago's Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events. Thank you for your support of teen-focused programming in DCASE. Without further ado, I want to introduce you to the moderator for today's event. The Urban Gateways team is grateful to have worked with Malcolm Banks when he was on the Teen Council a few years back. He's represented TAP publicly and in media appearances and truly a delight to work alongside. In his own words, Malcolm is committed to making the world a better place. He recently earned his associate's degree in theater and can't wait for what the world has to offer us all. He firmly and passionately believes in our future. Welcome, Malcolm.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, Lisa. Once again, I'm Malcolm Banks. It's great to be here with you all. So let's get some things started with some introductions. And to begin things, I would like to introduce you all here to Angel.
Hi everyone, I'm Angel. I go by he him pronouns. I'm a Chicago native and I have a just strong visual arts background. I am affiliated with Marwin Arts here in the city. I was their student intern for the summer term, and I've also worked with a few other organizations within the city. Yeah, nice to meet everyone.
Thank you very much, Angel. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And next up, you all, we have Isabella.
Hello, my name is Isabella. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a junior in the Omega program at Lane Tech. I am also a part of the Urban Gateways Teen Council, and I'm also a part of the Old Town School Folk Music's Teen Council and the Steppenwolf Teen Council, as well as the Steppenwolf's Loft Opening Committee. And I have been very involved in theater and singing, and I've also been playing the piano for many years as well.
Alrighty, awesome. Thank you very much, Isabella. And next up, you all, we have Jada.
Hi, I'm Jada. I use she, her pronouns. I'm 17, a rising senior at Peyton College Prep. I'm a part of the Community Actors Program at U Chicago's Arts and Public Life Department. I'm mostly interested in theater and I want to continue doing it in the foreseeable future.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jada. And last but certainly not least, I would like to introduce you all to Miles.
Hi, I'm Miles. I'm a rising junior at Sun High School. I'm in the theater program there. I am a very proud member of the Looking Glass Young Ensemble, the Steppenwolf Youth Arts Council, the Steppenwolf Loft Opening Committee, the CPS Arts Council. I do a lot of educational work around Chicago. I'm also a working actor in Chicago. And I'm also part of the Red Folder Project, which is Steppenwolf's committee for creating and designing lesson plans for their resident teaching artists within this coming year. And yeah, my pronouns are he, they, but I really don't care. I think that gender is a social construct. Call me whatever you feel comfortable with. And yeah, that's about it.
Alrighty, awesome, awesome. Thank you very much, Miles. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And to take things from there, to kick things off, thank you all for sharing very much. The first question we could kick things off with is pretty much, why would you all feel that teens' voices should matter to pretty much their audience, or pretty much just to be heard by any and everybody with everything going on in the world?
I'll go first. I think that teen voices are integral to art as a whole. I think that one of the things that makes art so invigorating to me is that it's constantly changing. How we view art is constantly changing. And I think that by empowering teen voices and really giving agency to teens across the world is setting us as artists and the entire artistic community up for a more supported as well as more expansive um, range of like what art looks like for each of our individual artistic paths.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Did anyone else have anything to share?
Yeah, I mean, adding to that, I mean, we're the future adults. We're people who are, we're getting involved in theater young, and we also provide a new perspective to the arts as well. And I think it's important that teens are involved in theater and their voices are heard, because, it allows for there to be this connection, and teens also grow, and they can grow with programs and arts as well as it is changing.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Isabella said, I associate like teens with, progress in the future. And I think it's important for, every group to matter to an audience, but specifically with teens, that's what I think the importance is.
Yeah, definitely fostering a sort of like careful and like a sense of belonging within the community, especially as we are sort of seen as a future, or at least the voices of the future, as we need to like sort of remember that.
Okay, thank you all very much for sharing. Yeah, I definitely agree. I remember just I myself just being a teenager, like you said, growth and development and progress, life is shifting quick. I remember I made the transition from sports over to theater, but now I'm older, I just see how lucky I am to even have that resource. And, I know it's a lot of kids around the city, teens around the city that might not necessarily have that opportunity. So I definitely agree with you all. And to pretty much go forward with the next question, what are you all most passionate about? And I guess, would you say that a lot of people's passions were, or you all's passions were, I guess you could say, intensified or energized with the pandemic, necessarily having the social changes and maybe spending more time alone?
Okay, I'll start off. So, I guess one of my passions, I've always loved like storytelling, and I did start off with dance before theater, and I feel like all of my interests, they keep evolving, but it's always been related to storytelling, in some way. And there was a second part of your question, I think, with um, COVID, it's really helped me be creative, like being able to tell stories and, whether it's with theater or anything else, like writing, yeah, I'm really interested in that.
For me, I'm really also interested in theater as well. I'm really interested in like performing and singing, but I'm also like really interested in like learning more about like the behind the scenes aspect of theater. Um, and I feel like with COVID, it's kind of given like a unique opportunity to explore this in like a virtual platform, to see like virtual shows, to um, have to figure out like a different like form to do theater. Um, and that is something that, that comes with COVID happening, and something that has sort of fed into my appreciation for the arts and my passion for those things.
Yeah, to pick up to piggyback off what Isabella said, I myself don't come from a like theater background or like a performing arts background, but visual one. And so what's like been going on with the whole pandemic and everything is, although we are kind of
And then Andrew, you kind of cut out there a little bit.
So well, Angel's gone just to fill some time so that he doesn't miss the next question. Just with my 2 cents about what I'm passionate about, artistic accessibility, especially for teens, specifically Black and Brown teens in lower income neighborhoods. I think that even pre-COVID, there were lots of problems with accessibility, specifically for theatrical and visual arts. And especially with COVID now, I feel like it's shined or shone a light on the shadows and crevices of this industry, specifically performing arts, that is pushed to be inclusive, which at many points it is, but financially, I think most of it is very far from that. And seeing this whole conversation start around virtual shows, how much money people should pay for virtual shows, it impassioned me a lot personally, thinking about in what ways can we ensure and use COVID as a learning opportunity to ensure that students, specifically again teenagers, are able to gain access and retain access to all of these higher standard forms of art.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. And Angel, did you have anything else that you wanted to add on to your question?
No, yeah, thank you. I was kind of covered it with the whole accessibility topic. We could kind of touch up on that a little bit later on, but yeah, thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem, no problem. And then pretty much to cross over into our next question. How are you all feeling, or how would you like to challenge the concept of, you know, the new normal that people are discussing in relation to the post-COVID world? Because I know it can just be a challenge, especially as, well, being young, really, you know, just having to accept this as a new normal, how it kind of can definitely impede what a lot of our goals were, a lot of what we thought we were going to visualize in terms of pursuing our goals and careers in terms of the art. So how would you all like to challenge pretty much going, or if this is the new normal, how would you like to, I guess you could say, secure, you know, your control over it, and just be sure to express yourself and feel free if this is going to be our new world?
I feel like the new normal, kind of like post-COVID, I feel like that means it's like a lot of different things for people, you know what I mean? Because I'm just like thinking like right away, sort of like safety precautions in terms of, you know, theaters or like art exhibitions, you know, like, are people going to still be wearing masks? Do people need to be vaccinated to get in? Is there going to be limited capacity? And I think that, the answer is sort of different for everybody and what they're comfortable with. But I feel like in terms of going forward, personally, if it's, kind of like in terms of like safety, I'd be comfortable, with like using masks indoors still, that type of thing. And, making sure that if people can get vaccinated, they can, and, encouraging that as well. But yeah, I also wonder, if there's going to be like a set of what is exactly the standard of, going back to normal. Is there going to be like limit capacity, that type of thing?
Yeah, and to go off of that, what would that mean in like maybe like a classroom setting, even where we have studio tables that can like sit 4 people? Is that like reduced to just like a single person now, or is it like, what does it mean when you have 30 like easels and they have to be like wiped down after each class? How is that going to be like impacted by hybrid or even like completely in-person learning?
Personally, for me, I think that part of this new normal, or I mean, my personal definition for it is like next normal, because I don't think that I feel personally that there's a connection between the past and then like adding some new things in. I don't personally think that that's how it's going to happen. I think that we're going to have to completely shift into our next normal, into what is going to have to become that next step. But specifically, I really want to see theaters around Chicago tape their shows and make those tapes accessible to, even if it's not everyone around Chicago. Again, teens, I'm education, really into teen education. Specifically, I think that the theater that did it best as COVID was coming in was Goodman. Goodman Theater had a production running at that time called Schoolgirls. It's still running now through August 30th. And I think it was like 4 or 5 days before all Chicago got the call that like, hey, we're shutting down. They were able to tape it very well. Like they were able to get a professional videographer up in there. They were able to get all of these really great angles to theater. And while it does take away from that live experience of theater, I think that having that ability to share art is something that should become a huge part of this next normal, is being able to not only like make the art, but I very strongly feel like art is not always, but most of the time meant to be shared. There are so many people that can gain benefit from that art. And I think that, again, specifically within performing arts, as well as dance, that being able to share that art, even if it's just within a classroom, printing out a scene, like if you're a teacher printing out a scene, having your students run that scene, being able to make and share art more frequently going forward.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. And then moving on to pretty much like slide over right into the next question with everything that's being said about how everybody's responding to, you know, their personal new normal differently, the new post-COVID era, and just how you may respond to it could be different for everyone. And with that being the case, some folks may feel as if they might be behind on some things. But and with that being the case, and you know, the arts being like a warming home for a lot of teens in a lot of instances, what does it mean now to belong as it relates to being a teen in the art community?
I think especially now when in like mostly online communities or like, it's just really hard to be creative and or at least for me personally, I have had the experience where it's just hard to, find inspiration sometimes, being in an online community specifically. I think what it means to belong is a lot about vulnerability and, you know, being able to communicate that, we're like we're all in this together.
I feel like, yeah, I agree with that. I also just want to add, um, I feel like it's a lot of like, making sure that, that people have space in communities and, the opportunity to be involved, maybe even, being a part of the process because, that makes people interested or seeing part of the process. Yeah, just like that sense of vulnerability, to be able to allow people to feel comfortable and to share and just be involved.
All right. Did anyone else want to share? All righty. So I guess with that, we're gonna move on to some questions for the RSVPs, and to begin those, I would like to kick it off with a question: what education initiatives do you believe the city should invest in as it relates to arts and culture? From Kiana Barrett, Associate Director of Education and Engagement at the Goodman Theater.
I can answer this first. It's from, again, Quenna Barrett. Hey Quenna, hey girl. Personally, I think that one of the largest education initiatives that should be put into effect throughout the country, if not just the city, is the promotion of aesthetic education. And aesthetic education is an approach to art and art making where you're able to fuse a student's want and desire to work hands-on with things and to interact with that art, with their learning within their educational environment. So an example of that would be, well, it's great in an English class to like take a page from a play that you're learning about and then dissect it. Another thing that can be done is, this is actually something that I'm working on with another theater company right now, is being able to like see a short story and then come up with your own short story if you're in an English class, and then have the English class teach about the hero's journey and be able to infuse these educational elements into art making specifically. And it doesn't only have to be English, it could be history. I've seen some people do it with math as well, but this idea of, again, aesthetic education and being able to combine arts as well as true literary, historical, or mathematical education. So yeah, that's something that I want to see a lot more within Chicago and the world, I guess.
All righty. Then I guess, did anyone else have anything to add on to that? All righty. Then I guess I can move on to the next question. When did you realize you loved art, and how has that affected you since then? This is by Barbara Deaver from the park supervisor of the Chicago Park District. Excuse me if I pronounce your name wrong in any kind of way. I apologize about that.
I'd actually kind of like to start off this question. It's a little funny, but I found, or I guess I found some of my fondness for the arts with the actual park district itself. I was a long time goer of my like neighborhood park house, and I always remember going and doing like little mini projects with like the perler beads or like little activities there, and I always found that really interesting and fun, and I guess that's what fostered my like creativity growing up, which um, seems a little weird, but yeah. And I guess that laid that like hands-on sort of nuances to that sort of like work kind of continued into my work going forward on, and yeah, but yeah.
For me, my love of like the arts began when I was in elementary school. My school they put on a bunch of like shows and stuff, and so it's kind of how I got involved in theater, and then I eventually then got involved with like singing, and then from there I just wanted to get more involved in Chicago theater. I wanted to you know find spaces and even find ways to create spaces for teens in theater. So ever since it's like elementary school production that I was in of Sound of Music, I've been seeking out theater. I've been trying to get more people like around me into theater, and yeah, that's kind of that. I would say that really started like my love of theater and kind of my journey as well.
For me, it was seeing, I forgot the exact production, but it was like Peter Pan 360. It was like a theater show that came to Chicago, and it happened in this huge white tent. And I saw these people flying, and I was like, I love to do that and get paid for it. And so from there, I got into theater. And then when I was, I think, like 7, my mom made the fatal mistake of playing the Wicked soundtrack for me. And I was like, I'm sold. Like that was the very moment where I was like, okay, this is what I want to get into. But yeah, that's me.
Nice, nice. Well, all right. Thank you all for sharing. Thank you all for sharing. Yeah, I know for me, I fell in love with the arts. Like I said, I brought it up earlier, just transitioning from sports, kind of, wanting to just branch out, try new things, and just, I believe when I did my first production of A Christmas Carol, that's actually, I didn't even know it's done here in Chicago every year. After that, I was sold as well. So I understand you all 100%. Then to move on with the questions here, what excites, or excuse me, what are parts of virtual learning that you found to be successful and hope to evolve moving forward, both in and out of arts? Jess Leonard, with the virtual learning manager from Snow City Arts.
I think the parts of virtual learning that I'm really, I really feel like made that huge impact was accessibility, kind of what Miles was talking about earlier. I feel like I definitely would not have considered starting theater. Unfortunately, um, I wasn't aware of the resources that I had until, last year. So I think that was pretty successful. I hope that there's some way that, more people are made aware of these programs that are now like some of them are returning back to in person. Um, yeah, I think that made a huge difference.
Yeah, same. I'd have to agree with Jada on the whole accessibility standpoint, um, or even like the ability to go like to multiple different programs at like the same day or even like the same weekend. Like I know transportation from like say Humboldt Park to this downtown area is kind of a little weird or wonky with the whole train and everything, but I am personally able to go from my home to like my essay like my SASC ECP class without like having to leave my bedroom. It's incredibly accessible and it's really helpful and amazing, especially because it's the arts, and I guess the arts is a little not gate kept, but like less accessible than most, as it's not such like a priority to a lot of people. And yeah.
I definitely agree. Time was something that I found that I had shockingly a lot of, I mean, yeah, during quarantine. And I was really able to get involved in a bunch of different things. And like Angel said, like I didn't need to worry about transportation. That cut down time as well. Like I could just jump from, one, like a Google Meet to a Zoom meeting. And so I feel like in terms of like how do I want it to evolve? I think that honestly, I feel like the pandemic has shown that not everything needs to go in person, if that makes sense. Especially since I feel like it being online does make it more accessible for people. Um, so I think that that is a big takeaway that we can take from this pandemic is that, that could be a format that people can, take as like a resource to even get like a broader audience and to get people in rather than saying, oh, we're just going to have like a set event date at this so and so location. If if certain events you want to like keep holding them virtually, I think that that is very plausible and that could be very I just think it's like it'd be great. It'd be great in terms of accessibility, and I think you're going to get more people that way as well.
To really quickly answer that out of the arts question, I think that when we're talking about virtual, like parts of virtual learning that were successful, I don't know how much success was in it for the artists who were teaching, but as far as the student point of view, I found that like learning to realize that just because someone doesn't have a camera on, just because somebody isn't responding, like it's easy to think that they are off doing something, and they may well be. But realizing that if somebody doesn't have like the emotional time or energy to support whatever activity is happening doesn't mean that they're not doing it. So I think that being able to make that connection as an artist in virtual learning and also in person as well, like being able to see this student doesn't have the mental or physical energy to do this activity, and that's okay. Right? Because I think that there's also this unreal expectation that if you're in an arts program, you're going to be doing every piece of art. And while for some people that's very achievable, that's really, really great. I know from like many of my friends talking about it that it can be overstimulating at times. It can be a tough environment to get into with not only art, but also just learning in general. Like, because my personal view is that learning was made for a certain type of person and for a certain type of people to succeed. And so I think that being able to, again, take away that just because somebody isn't physically participating, isn't physically turning their camera on, isn't physically speaking, doesn't mean that they are not trying or even engaging in that art making.
You all are pure gold, so this is exciting. Thank you all very much. Alrighty, so to answer those questions from the Q&A from Lynn Green, we pretty much have how is it that you can draw a person in to the arts that may know nothing about the arts, or pretty much they come from the environment where the arts, it may even be looked down upon, or it's just not cool? What ways can you sway some folks out there that may not know anything about it over to be a part of it for its personal benefits, not even necessarily for a career, but it's personal benefits?
I mean, like I was talking about earlier, I feel like a great way to do that is through aesthetic education. But in terms of asking about like, is there a platform? That is, I think, one of the toughest problems within the artistic community, because then to have access to that platform means that you have to actively, for I'm not going to say quite a while, but there is some work that has to go into finding these accessible places. But I would say if that community does not have as much exposure to the arts, trying to, if you are like a teacher going into that educational space, like I was saying with aesthetic education, being able to work in these already familiar and already known parts into something that's already unknown. But in terms of a platform that can work, I had a theater teacher, Mr. Schrader, have him currently, one of the best theater teachers I've ever had. If you have a Google Classroom as an educator, which I know that most people, at least within the Chicago area, do, posting opportunities on your Google Classroom is something that teachers think that students don't check Google Classroom. And while sometimes, yes, that's true, I cannot tell, like Mr. Schrader would post every opportunity that he saw on it because he was already within that artistic community. It was a real benefit to me. Like emailing out to all of your students, just saying, hey, here's an opportunity. Even if you don't think that any students are going to want to do it, it's still like, it's a 3-minute email that might change a student's life. So I would say being able to use your platform as an educator, as somebody who already is able to send out these messages to students, to be able to send out opportunities as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not sure how you could get someone started specifically that isn't aware of what's available, but for me, I got started with After School Matters. I know it's a platform that I'm not sure like how many marginalized people use After School Matters, but that's how I got started in theater. I had a teacher who she went to a theater school, so she had a lot of resources. Yeah, and she shared a ton of opportunities that got me even more involved with with the things I was interested in. So yeah, like what Miles was saying, having even just one teacher that, believes in you, or, has that experience, or both, is just really helpful.
Yeah, and when it comes to, I guess, easing students into the arts world or even like an arts practice, I guess maybe talking about like lesson plans, maybe starting with a medium that isn't so, I guess, get kept or like held to a standard. So instead of maybe like starting out with a graphite drawing, starting out with like a popsicle stick birdhouse or something that isn't traditionally seen as within the whole like fine arts or um, uh, like contemporary world, as it's like semi-elitist or I guess hard to get into, which is I think what a lot of students struggle with is comparing their work to that of others or not being the best at what they're doing. I know I struggle with it and a lot of fellow artists do. So I guess easing students into that would be a good way, and even just uplifting students or making their work be comforting or the space be non-judgmental. I found that that could be like helpful or even um, help them grow or pursue further mediums or even like projects or stuff.
What can be some things done or some actions taken to encourage virtual participation? Like maybe considering maybe a lot of teams that may be burned out from virtual, or just how with active people are nowadays, just sitting in one spot may be difficult for a lot of folks. So how could you increase participation in that? And to answer the anonymous, or to ask the anonymous attendees question, you know, with considering everything going on with COVID, how a lot of folks might be a little bit, on the fence about going back to the theater, considering, how it's how people come together and they just sit might, closer to each other in a more bunched up environment. What can be some things to draw people back to the theater scene, especially considering how a lot of things have become virtual?
So I'll start again. So from those two questions, I'll answer them both individually, I guess. I think that when we're talking about what ideas do you have to encourage to encourage participation virtually? Like I was talking about earlier, I think that first of all, as an educator, releasing this thought that if a student's camera isn't on, that they're not there. Because I mean, I'm going to be honest, some days like I just would not have my camera on because I was burnt out. Like I just was not there, was not ready. But being able to, y'all, tap into Google Jamboards. Let me tell you, Google Jamboards, it is like a Google product that's free. And it's a great way for you as an educator to, you start a Jamboard. It's really, really simple. And you share a link with your class. They go, then they're able to like write on little Post-it notes and put it onto that virtual Jamboard. And it's a great way to share ideas, to encourage participation, because they don't have to unmute. They don't have to turn their video on. They're able to share their thoughts freely. That Kahoots, let me tell you, kahoot.com, it's think of it as a quiz site. You start this like class-wide quiz and they can just type in a code and then they're able to participate through it. I'm seeing some Jamboard love in the chat. Padlet, that too. Yep. But yeah, Kahoot and Jamboard, I think, are great with participation. And speaking about creating ways for people to come back on a not so like large budget, I think that being able to radio plays. I just had like a different thought. So just keep in mind, like radio plays, I think are a great way to publicize theater without having to be so actively engaged. So if people are like interested, but they're not like they don't want to go see like a full 2-hour show and that whole thing, like a nice 30-45 minute radio play from your theater. And I know that there is a lot of copyright complications as well as other stuff, especially with union and equity. Actors equity is what I meant. I just realized that might not click for some people. Sorry, that's on me for using those terms. But creating these shorter plays, and even if copyright's a thing, public domain, being able to find a public domain play and then judging it up if you want, doing whatever you want with that play because it's public domain, but creating these alternative pieces of theater that are more easily accessible online, that don't require filming, that really honestly bare bones, you could like pull out your MacBook, have all the actors sit in a circle around it and do the play, right? It's a less intensive rehearsal process as well. And yeah, I really enjoy a good radio play. And then making it accessible, if your theater has a website, making it accessible through there on the website. But yeah, I hope that answered both of those questions.
Yeah, about that second question, when you were talking about the radio plays, I was actually in a radio drama, which made, yeah, it was just for my school, but it made the being a part of a group a lot more engaging, just being able to participate in that. So yeah, it's not exactly live and, in person, but it did kind of help me feel like I was a part of a community. About one of these questions, the first question that said encourage participation virtually. So I guess this sounds easier than it actually is, but making sure that there's a lot of engagement. And I feel like right off the bat, just establishing like this huge sense of understanding amongst the entire group so that, when you do classroom activities, whether they're like related to the content or not, people feel like that they have the space to learn, whether that's in the arts or not. I had a teacher that, I felt like just because, we felt like we were such a tight community, we were able to, talk about ourselves, and even just like talking about yourself or, what's going on in your life makes a huge difference in, class performance.
Yeah, I just want to jump off of that and say, just like add to like the participation as well. I think that also just like having like established like, okay, these are like, I guess like community agreements, you know what I mean? Just kind of like, expectations. So when people come into, a space like virtually, just so they know like, okay, this is what's going to happen. This is sort of, the expectation. And also kind of wanted to add about like, encourage participation virtually is really utilize the chat. I find that to be a feature that's like very helpful for me. I kind of relate this to what Miles was saying earlier about like not having your camera on. If people are not unmuting themselves, that doesn't mean that they're not there. So I think that encouraging people who have something to share, being able to use the chat, being able to talk to others in a virtual space in the chat, to because not breakout rooms don't always be a thing. And if you want to connect people with each other as well, in the chat, yeah, is a great tool to do so.
Yeah, and going back a little to like the whole community agreements thing, I guess, like not enforcing them, but like actually like using them and like continually like updating or even like just looking back on them. Like I remember sometimes I like at the beginning of the whole like virtual learning thing, a few teachers were like, yeah, we're all in this together and we're all struggling. But then they'd like drop like 2 hours of homework a night, or like um, have their class be like incredibly difficult, or like not loosen up. And I guess that kind of goes back into like actually like understanding the fact that the community agreements are there for a reason. Or yeah.
I'm gonna really quickly, just really quickly add on. Few things in terms of engagement. Number one, just you as a teacher, you as an educator, please breaking down that power structure, this older power structure of I'm a teacher, you are a student, you are here to learn, really encouraging and voicing to your class, hey, I'm here to learn just as I'm here to learn just as much as you. I want to learn from you and I want to actively like be there for you. And also like in terms of getting to know your class, spend the first 2 days if possible, because I understand some educational environments it's not. It don't have to be like weird icebreakers, but it could be like I was saying, like a Kahoot game, like a get to know me, get to know my class. That when we're talking about community agreements, being able to, again, that's a great Jamboard idea to have your community agreements on a Jamboard, as well as utilizing Google Classroom again is a great way to get engagement. But yeah, I was community agreements, being able to really like make sure that your kids know that you are in that journey with them, that you are in the car with them, that you're not the one who's like 50 miles ahead telling them to catch up, but that you're in the car in that passenger seat, really being there and supporting them and learning stuff from them as well. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. So I guess you all can see Emily Ridden's question about how does the arts impact your daily life and your personal growth and development in terms of pretty much how we go forward from here in terms of like its importance to not just I guess you could say us here, but for teens across the whole entire Chicagoland area.
I love this question so very much. Okay, so when we're thinking about arts participation, how it impacts our daily lives, as well as development of young adults, I think I'm a very strong advocate for arts education because I think that it helps promote social emotional growth, as well as if we're thinking about like broad spectrum, especially within young adults, artistic environment in their everyday lives, it broadens their emotional vocabulary, it broadens their emotional vulnerability as well. And being able to actively participate and have a community that is all there for one common purpose. And that can be done through sports, but some people, me, don't do that well in like a very competitive environment. And having this more friendly environment where it's like, we're not here just to beat somebody, but we are here to play. We're here to make art. And also being able to elevate this art and say like, just because we're in a classroom does not mean that this is like bad art, does not mean that this is like less than. But yeah, like I was saying, especially with a youth development, being able to, there's a very common knowledge that group settings are great for kids, as well as finding community, especially within middle and high school, where there's a lot of brain development going on, especially when we're talking about social emotional growth, as well as personality development based off of who you're around. Being able to have this centering and grounding community are all things that I think really are great about participating in art day to day as a young adult.
Yeah, and not only that, with the whole like social emotional thing, they also offer like a outlet for, I guess, critique, or I guess the understanding of the world with social activism artwork, or like incorporating different aspects of your everyday life into it, with like involving your background or your ethnicity or where you're coming from as a person. It lets you express that, and it lets you, I guess, be able to find your community and find your people. Yeah.
All righty. And I guess to pretty much wrap things up here, is there a final thought or a final takeaway, final shout out you all would like to put out there before we wrap things up?
I guess the final takeaway that I have, it kind of answers that last question, but more so what I think that everyone should know. I think that the ability to be able to express yourself is something that should be appreciated. I think specifically with the arts, there's not a lot besides the arts that have can kind of make people emotionally vulnerable, kind of what Angel and Miles were saying. So yeah, just I guess remembering that that is important will really make the arts important too.
Also want to add that, it's all about, making a community and, the community with teens and also adults, and that as well. I think it's important, that, you make sure that you have space for teens and, have space for conversation, to learn from each other's art, to grow from each other's art. And I think it's something that people should be constant conversation about.
Yeah, and I think we should kind of just just keep having a little bit of patience and just a little bit of self-care, or I guess taking care of one another and being on the lookout for each other.
I'll leave with one thing, but really quickly to answer that last Q&A that I saw in the chat. I find inspiration from YouTube and bootlegs. Don't tell anybody though. I have my own thoughts about like Broadway bootlegs, West End bootlegs. That's a whole other conversation. But one thing that I want for everyone to take away from this discussion is that art, is that art is a malleable thing that I think should be, for real, Tatiana, art is a malleable thing that I think should be played with and should always be questioned. So whenever you're in a classroom, being able to constantly question, why is this artist doing what they're doing? What do we want to do? What do we want to achieve? Being able to engage these students not only passively, but also ingraining them within this artistic system of like, what do you want to do specifically? What is your like vision? How do you want to participate? And also being able to, when you're setting up community agreements, this is just like a little thing for me, recognizing that this, like, there really is no such thing as a safe space. So when you're talking about art and when you're talking about setting up community agreements for artistic spaces, especially within teens, I know that I share this thought with the many other people that I talk with, is that if 2020 has really taught us anything, as well as just being a person of color, safe spaces don't really exist, because if it's a safe space but it has restrictions, it's not a safe space. It's a weird thing. So being able to push forward this narrative of a brave space, being ready, willing, and able to say what you want, but also having that same mindset when it comes to being wrong, when it comes to putting forward an idea that was offensive to some people, stuff like that. So yeah, really being able to keep your educational environment, whether it be a classroom, whether it be a theater, whatever it may be, a brave space for your students.
Alrighty, awesome. Thank you all very much. That was super cool. Thank you all very much for your words. I'm very excited to see what you all do for the world. Thank you all for coming out. I know I'm personally inspired by this experience in totality. I know I'm gonna try to put some more work in going forward. And that's about it. Thank you all for coming out. You all could go ahead and sign off, and happy trailblazing, everyone. Absolutely. Have a great one.
Thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.